I'm thinking a little bit about iteration because I had one idea of um, just producing a lot of different assets and then animating with them, or animating, producing a lot of assets as I go, and just having this very Rick and Morty-esque, Star Wars-esque, fill in the blank-esque, Adventure Time-esque thing of being constantly immersed in different worlds, with different technologies, different design cues, etc., etc. And it's just it's not really realistic. Even Star Wars, when you start to lean on Star Wars, it's like there's a lot of patterns in the different types of technology and whatnot. Um, you know, like if you look at the ships and you look at like the quote unquote greebling, and you look at the shapes of the ships, like there's like 2 or 3 inspired patterns, and if you know like non-Euclidean shapes, then a lot of the fantastic geometry of the fantastic architecture of Star Wars isn't really so fantastic anymore. It's just like, oh, because in real life we're used to seeing more simple looking designs, the non-Euclidean fractal kind of geometry in the architecture is just a little bit jarring and a shock to the system. And when you understand that, it's like it loses some of its magic. Like when I watched like A New Hope, for example, seeing the hallways with all the sloping here and there and whatnot, it really amazed me. It just looks so bizarre. And then you go down to the desert planet. The desert planet is almost more like what you would see in your day-to-day as far as the actual geometry of these things. But of course, it is still sci-fi. But yeah. So like being in Europe, I think also has driven this point home for me because architecture is just a lot more interesting, and you get these repeating shapes and patterns, and okay, it's not non-Euclidean or anything, it's not, but it's just it's more fractaled, I think. I mean, that's like the thing, is that the human eye wants to see fractals. You know, so, which I've thought about how to integrate that into my own work. But I have a few ideas. I think at some point, okay, let's say I realize my dream of, okay, dream. Let's say I get to the point where I'm like an animation mangaka. Like I'm thinking to myself, have that style of work. Let's say I get to that point. So then, like, what am I gonna, I guess, do with that? Or I mean, what? Okay, if I had some assistants, I had people making like patterns, or if I would simply like buy patterns. But the thing that gets me there is large files. Transferring files is honestly harder than doing the work myself. Buying a file and having it online is super easy, and it's super easy to integrate. So it's easy to download the file and it's easy to integrate it. Yeah, I think if I wanted to get assistance in the future, I would just like maybe pay one person to just make me a shit ton of 3D models with certain design sensibilities that I use, and then they could rig them, or honestly, if they make them right, it would be easy for me to just rig them if they forget, or if they just don't know how to rig. Like, let's say I train somebody, which would be the most likely thing, I think. Because in an hour, someone could make 3, 4, 5 3D models that are relatively similar. So, if I could just pay someone that on the side in the future, that would help me to realize this more varied style, especially since it would be a different consciousness producing some of these meshes. But someone would really have to just do things the way that I do it, which isn't hard. It's not hard to train. My style is more basic. It's more about color. I think color drives it more than, like, say, shape language or something like that. I mean, it's very particular to me, but it's not something that would be hard for someone else to reproduce. And or it's not something that someone couldn't make their own thing, and it would look strange next to it, because my style is so idiosyncratic and particular. When I don't think a lot of people are doing what I'm doing, but my mid poly, there's nothing super special with it. Also, I've been thinking about doing the eventually kind of going the Gumball's Amazing Adventures route, where in just, okay, I'm not going to get to the point where it's mixed media, but like like when SpongeBob is next to Man Ray, you don't necessarily think much of it, even though Man Ray looks like he could be in an action cartoon, and SpongeBob, of course, is a squash and stretch character, basically. So I guess the biggest thing I wanted to think about now is, like, I guess one thing I really don't like is, like, Star Trek, for example. The Klingons in their appearance in the original series are just dudes, basically. And they're kind of space Soviets. It felt like it's supposed to be space Soviets. So I read they're supposed to be space Nazis. I didn't really get that sense from it, but then again, I didn't watch a lot of period films on the topic, and I don't know. Maybe it was a little bit of both. Kind of the all dictators are the same, or all fascist states are the same kind of idea. And then you get to, like, the Next Generation, and there are these, like, alien ethnic warriors race with ridged heads. So I don't want to do that with my stuff. Also, like, fucking mopeds everywhere. Yeah, so another thing is that I don't want to be, like, more basic looking at first, and then kind of iterate into being, like, I've seen this sometimes where, like, the show of something is more basic and more, what you'd expect from TV, and then, like, a movie comes out about something, and in the same universe, it's the same characters and whatnot, and they're really showing you a lot of, like, wow. I just find that very jarring. Like, so I watched the 1986 Transformers movie, and then when I watched the show, I was kind of surprised, because obviously it wasn't, there weren't as many lines, there weren't, visually there wasn't nearly as much to look at. There's static backgrounds, and these relatively 2D looking robot men who almost, like, the movie, they look metal, and they look really amazing. And just knowing the movie, the animated film, from 1986, of course, not the Bay movies, which, the Bay movies I didn't like just because, besides like Optimus and Bumblebee, you can't tell the bots apart. And I struggle with that even in any show, except for Prime, I think. Prime got it right, where like you can tell the robots apart because, you know, they just have certain cues on them. They're like, oh, that's X or Y, and there's not as many robots. But the original, yeah, so anyways, it was just very jarring, and I think that's something that, you know, of course, I don't think I'm going to have any particular worry about. I think one thing is probably my animation skills will get better, so things will look smoother with the same number of keyframes. Because I don't really want to go in depth and do a bunch of keyframes. Like, there's a certain amount of keyframes I want to do, and I don't want to do more than that. And, you know, maybe someday I'll find a visual AI tool that will just jitter things around a bit better in an organic way, you know, but I'm not going to do that myself. I'd outsource that, because it's just not interesting work to me. You know, what's interesting to me is to get an idea across fast. I shouldn't say fast, but simply to just execute it. The story is moving ahead. It's interesting. It feels good. I will say I'm getting a lot of praise on this animation I'm doing. I think Blender is a bit of a black box that if you don't know how to use it, if you have not really had a lot of exposure to it, it looks very, it looks more complicated and interesting than it truly is. And always, this is something I had to learn in comics, is to me, you know, if there's a wardrobe in the background, I drew that wardrobe, like when I used to draw comics. Like, I drew that wardrobe, so I don't have, like, to me, it's an object occupying space, but, you know, it's like when you're in your own house, you know what everything is. You don't go into your own house, you know, that you moved into when it was completely empty, or, you know, some people get things furnished, but, you know, like over time, you left magazines on the table until there's a big pile of magazines. You put board games on the shelf till the shelves are full of board games. You know, and you bought new furniture for the place, and, you know, whatever. So when you're in your own house, you know, it's your home environment. You just kind of know what everything is, and you remember it. But when you go to someone else's house, or someone else comes to your house, there's kind of this feeling of alienness, because you don't exactly know what the function or purpose of a lot of things are, and you just see that, you know, someone else has all these things going on, and you don't know where it'll, because it's a lot of thought, it's a lot of intention over a long period of time cooked into the room. And I think it's the same for, like, when I set up a room and, you know, a comic, which I don't do comics really anymore, or I don't know, thought about doing storyboards again, but we'll see what my process is going to be when I'm on new ground after Manazar. I'll just wait till I can actually, because the longer of time that there is between me just, you know, me planning and me just sitting down and doing the thing, I sort of lose the plot. And, you know, metaphorically speaking, of course, maybe literally as well, but yeah, I just forget what was even the point, you know. And so, yeah. Also, yeah, back to the last thing. So, yeah, I think when someone, me as an artist, basically, everything that I did, I understand the intention of, and I can get lost in my own thoughts about the thing, but still, there's a familiarity that I have that I think a lot of people, like for myself, because a lot of people have this artistic insecurity, this insecurity about what they made, because there's, okay, you make a blunder, you are hyper aware of that blunder. Like in the first shot of Banizar, there's some meshes that just are really ugly in it. Now, I can probably change it easily because of the way I do the background, but yeah, it's not pretty basically. And reason for that is because I messed up the way the meshes are for what's supposed to be hidden. I accidentally keyframed some objects, blah 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 blah. And then, I'm hyper, but most people I think wouldn't see it because it's in the background. It's sort of dark, but I see it and I'm like, oh shit, But I think that's the thing is the viewer is lost in the mind of the creator. They're coming into this, and everything they see is curated by the creator, but it's like going to someone else's house. It's particular. It's sort of alien. So yeah, I think that's a comforting thing. I think also some of my concerns, it's like if the project has a very gradual increase in its, or very gradual change in its style. So like, let's say for now I just reuse a lot of the same characters looking stuff. It's the same like 4 bodies for 2D faces. It's the same few 2D faces, pasted over different models, and it's a little more messy. And then over time, like, let's say that happens in this film, but in the next film, everyone has their own faces, which I think I'm just going to give everyone their own faces anyways, because if I chunk the work, that's one thing. If that's one part of this, that if I chunk the work, it'll be fine. I think I might use the same mesh for the faces too, and then just make separate separate actual faces that then I can click between. So yeah, I should make a plan for that, because once I do that, that'll be really powerful. But yeah, it's just over time, as I produce more shit, right, and as the scenes and the concepts and everything become more complicated, if that process is gradual, I think it'll work. And yeah, I guess I'm doing that anyways. Now the issue is when you go from a TV show to a feature film, and suddenly everything looks way more detailed, or you go from a shitty Doctor Who episode level of variance and sci-fi designs to Star Wars feature film level variance, or if you go from just basically whatever you're actually realistically able to produce to trying to be like a major Cartoon Network show that's constantly changing, having different things in it. It's just harder.